He's opinionated. He's unapologetic. He's always real. He is Brett Mason. This is the Brett Mason Show.
Well, I am Brett Mason. I am your humble host, and I thank you for listening to the Brett Mason Show. This will be another live call-in version of the Brett Mason Show. So, if you were one of those kind of people that are always wanting to call in, maybe you're one of those people that listen to my podcast and you sit there and scream at the podcast going, "My God, man, you're so stupid." And there are those people. I've really made an effort to be able to get the naysayers and the Brett Mason haters in on the show because I'm a person, unlike many, who believe in open dialogue. I believe that our ills of the world, our problems with each other that cross boundaries and cultures could be cured if we simply spent more time with each other. Now, I know that's a radical proposition to take. I know that's not necessarily a proposition that's popular with people, this whole talking to people thing and getting to know people thing. But I can tell you this from firsthand experience. This has been something that I set out to prove in my own life. I didn't know, well, I knew of some gay people. Later on, I wound up knowing at least two gay people pretty well. But at the time I started this, I just knew of some gay people, didn't know any gay people personally. I didn't know any Jews. I didn't know any Muslims. I didn't know any atheists. And those were the people that tended to be in the news and all the inflammatory things that you see posted all the time. And so I made it a point in my life. I said, I am going to get, to the best of my ability, I'm going to get to know some of these people as best I can. Because what happens on TV, and now I think even more so, people bash TV, but I think it's even worse in social media now, is groups of people become caricatures of themselves. And I've never believed it was good to lump a group of people into one category because I've been a person in categories that get called out a lot, primarily with my weight. There's a lot of misconceptions about fat people, and I'm going to say it. Fat people aren't big boned. They aren't height challenged. They're fat. People that are overweight are fat. And so being in that group of people, I come to know through very early in life that things that were said about fat people didn't apply to all fat people. And some of them did, some of them didn't. And a lot of those things that were attributed to fat people applied, in my opinion, from me being around, being a fat person in a world of mostly skinny people. And that's what I grew up in. I think there's even more fat people now, so fat people kind of bind together more now. But when I was growing up, there was a lot less fat people. What I found to be true was a lot of the things that were attributed to fat people were just as prevalent, if not more prevalent, among my skinny friends. And so, these are things that I started learning and was very intuitive about at a younger age. And so, as I continued to, reflect on things as I grew older and especially as I got as old, my very older years in the past few recent years where, I think about things even more, I think seriously. It became pretty obvious to me that one thing that we needed to do was know other people. We need to get to know the people that we are put in a category and a classification together. So, with the world of the internet, there's really no excuse in this day and time for not knowing just about anything that you want to know. And there's no excuse for not being able to associate with just about any group of people that you put your mind to associate with. Now, they may not live in your town. They may not live on your street. They may not live on your block. But they certainly are accessible to you. So several years ago, I joined some forums, mainly through Reddit, but some other forums as well. And one of those was an atheist forum. One of those was actually a couple of Muslim forums. What I set out to do was to get to know some people as best I could. And how intimately can you know someone from an internet forum? I think it's just like in real life. I think the more time you spend with them in conversation, the better you get to know them, especially if you're willing to ask questions and they're somebody that's willing to answer questions. So, in addition to that, I also chose to do actual fact-based research, not learning things strictly from the memes that pop up on my Facebook page. And so in the instance of gay people, I did a lot of studying of the homosexual phenomenon in humans and animals and other species as well. And in the case of Muslims, I tried to study a fair amount the Muslim religion. I also took into account how the majority of Muslims act, and also across the various continents and countries, probably more accurate, definitely within borders, different sets of borders, what the Muslim population is like. And the same to Jews to a lesser extent. I thought I knew more about Jews, so that wasn't quite as big of as a concern. And, what I found was that people are pretty much the same. We're all pretty much the same. Whether you're white, whether you're black, whether you're a Jew, whether you're gay, whether you're a Muslim, Christian, we're all pretty much the same. The problem is that we all have a thing that centralizes our being and who we are. And that kind of gets magnified naturally from the inside out, but not nearly as much as it gets magnified from the outside in. Because people like to take whatever, they like to take what's easiest, because that's the easiest way to identify and relate to people. If you take the most obvious thing about a person and make that the focal point of your thoughts, ideas, and interactions with that person, it makes it easy. It makes your life of communicating with them easy. So, I think in olden times, before we had the internet and telephones and instant communication and the world had no boundaries, I think that probably was an easier way to do things. You identified with the blacksmith because he was the blacksmith, and it was very easy to relate to him. And you related to the apothecary because he was the apothecary, and that's pretty much the way you saw him. And you related to the pastor of your local church through that lens. And so you associated with everybody through a specific lens, and it made it very easy. The problem was that is once we started branching out of our tribes and out of our small boundaries and into larger boundaries, the countries, then continents, and then the world, we started trying to continue to view people through as narrow a prism as possible for simplicity's sake. And the problem with doing that is you don't know anything about the people. First of all, in town, if we go back to our oldest scenario, when you were in your little tribe, in your little small village, where you had one blacksmith and one apothecary and, one bar owner and right on down the line, the one general store, you could identify with the blacksmith in that way because there was only one of them in town. You only had one blacksmith. The towns were so incredibly small. The villages were so incredibly small. You only had the one guy. You could make assumptions about the blacksmith based on him being a blacksmith because there was only one of them. You might have only had one overweight person in town, and it probably was due to a medical condition or some type of mental defect that prevented them from leading a normal, active life like you had to lead during those times. You had to get out and bust it. You had to get out and hustle. You couldn't just run down to the corner and buy fast food through a bag and just sit around and get fat. I mean, you had to get out and hustle. It was a lot of work to eat. So there weren't nearly as many fat people. So you might have one fat person, and you would identify them, again, through that same lens, which there wasn't really that much wrong with it because there was only the one fat person. So that I can just take this on out as far as you would like to go with it. But let's transpose that into modern society where, when we communicate now, especially like in terms of Facebook, Facebook made me change my personal Brett Mason page from just being a personal page where I had 5,000 friends and nearly 3,000 followers for a total of nearly 8,000 people that I communicated with on there. They made me change it from a profile page to a business page. And I was doing business on it. I guess that's my bad. But nevertheless, before that, I daily communicated with hundreds and hundreds of people. And I mean two-way communications in terms of comments and banter back and forth, and private messages. And the number of people that I had conversations with during those times was incredibly large, much larger than what a person, the group of people a person back in the day would have had communication with. You just wouldn't have communicated with that many people. So it's just an example of how much time has changed. Then you see that we live in a worldwide society now rather than a tribe or a small community. And still our minds want to do what they always did. And so we want to lump gay people into a category. We want to lump fat people into a category. You want to lump skinny people into a category. You want to lump everybody into one. You want to perceive them one way. And that's the most dangerous thing that's happening in the world right now, by far. So here's the thing. 15 years ago, I'm a dyed-in-the-wool, conservative, religious right wingnut. And pretty much everybody I know would fall into that category, and so we all got along great. Once I actually started educating myself and not just believing stuff that people older than me had told me, I actually started reading things. I determined that most of all of that was bunk. And so I had to determine what is the real truth of the world, foreign policy, politics, things like that. And so I now have my own viewpoints. Granted, I still fall within a category, I think, but not 100%. I'm now mostly libertarian. I'm a person who believes religion has no place in government. Zero. Never has. And our founding fathers were very clear about that. Anybody that claims otherwise have no idea what our founding fathers said. They've never read any of their quotes, never read any of their writings, probably never even heard of the Federalist Papers, much less read them. Probably, if they had those, may have not ever heard there's such a thing as the Anti-Federalist Papers. I mean, the people's knowledge of our country's history comes from what their grandma told them. And grandmas are great. Grandmas have a lot of wisdom in a lot of different areas. You certainly should learn from them. But I think in matters that are that complicated and that important, I think you probably should maybe go to the original source and do a little research. Because what happens is down through time, people's things get filtered through their worldview. And so you filter the news, you filter history, you filter everything through your personal worldview. And so you get a filtered version of it. And then you pass down a filtered version of it to those younger than you who have their own filters, and they filter it. And, 4 or 5 generations later, it's so diluted and filtered that it's pretty much a talking point for whatever your worldview is. So anyway, that's not the point of this podcast. So I'm not going to dig off too deep into that. I think it's interesting that people will quickly, this is probably the most disturbing thing to me about facts and news and information, political, foreign policy related things, big time issues, freedom of religion issues. This is probably my biggest problem with things like this being propagated on social media, and that's where people are educated and also how they share and try to educate others. It's that you can pick and choose instantly which of these you want to dive into. So, for example, I'm going to make this a hypothetical because I want it to be very clear, and I want it to be very polarizing. So, while this will be an extreme example, I make it extreme so it'll point out in clarity what the problem is with people getting their primary source of news and information and facts from Facebook and social media. You get to pick and choose what you click on and read, what you want to believe, and how far you want to go. So let's just say that I'm going to call them the Reds and the Blues. Okay. You got red team, blue team. So let's say a bunch of my friends on Facebook are all red team. Let's say the majority of my friends are red team, and I don't necessarily agree with too much red team has to say. I'm on blue team, and that being said, I don't believe too much blue team has to say, but I more closely relate to it. And so let's say red team, there's this theory or this quote-unquote fact that's spreading like wildfire by the red team. And the red team keeps sharing and resharing. Let's say that I decide to go research it, and I find 100% unequivocal proof that can be proven beyond any reasonable doubt within 15 seconds that what red team is spreading is blatantly false. It's 100% false. I can take that and share it on my Facebook page, and that should be the end of it. My other friends should go, man, because all you get is a little headline. You'll get a picture and you'll get a headline that goes, red team's assertions are false. This shocking evidence disproves their assertions in 15 seconds. So there it is right in front of them. So an intellectually honest person would go, I wonder if I really am wrong about this. Let me click on it and see. But they don't. They don't do it. What you'll get is you'll get people that'll comment it and go, that's just BS spread by the liberal left. Did you click on the article? Did you bother to read it? Did you have problems with the facts presented in the article and decide to research those facts on your own to prove or disprove them? No, you just commented on the article. You commented it in the negative because it goes against your worldview, and you keep right on trucking along. Look, I've been guilty of that in the past. I'm not bashing other people. I'm saying this is how humans work. This is how we are as humans. This is how we operate. If you have a particular worldview and you have a particular view of life, you're going to live your life based on assumptions that fit within that worldview, and you're going to be quick to shun anything that goes against that worldview. So this is why there's no, I can't say no. This is why there's very little winning over of the other side via social media, because nobody's forced to look at altering viewpoints. If anything, people become very defensive over alternative viewpoints and will become very defensive and be quick to shoot them down without ever even reading them. And sometimes we'll go on the offensive to shoot something down that they haven't even read. Well, that's just, and remember at the beginning of the podcast where I talked about getting to grow to know certain groups of people, where over the past few years, I've gotten to know some atheists pretty well. I've gotten to know some Muslims pretty well. I've gotten to know some Jews pretty well. I've gotten to know several gay people pretty well. So I believe I've expanded my social circles. So during that period of time, I have become less likely to be a person who will discount something that a gay person posts on their Facebook page because of my worldview. Having gotten to know those people, I realized that they're pretty much just like me. They're pretty much seeking truths and answers, and occasionally they find them, and occasionally they share them. Rather than instantly dismiss something a Muslim or a Jew or a homosexual or a Christian or a Hindu or whatever would post, I'm much more inclined to read it and hope to learn something from it. That's the kind of person I've become. I've become a person who is more likely to entertain other points of view. I don't dismiss them outright. Now, am I saying that I'm a much better person than everybody else? No, I'm not a better person than anybody. But I do think at times I'm a much better informed person than some, because I will actually participate in being informed. You know, I don't know if tolerance is probably the right thing. There's definitely a negative connotation to the word tolerance. I'm not tolerant of people. To me, tolerant is such a I need to take a shower after saying it word. It means that I don't agree with you, You're wrong and I'm right, but I'm going to tolerate you. No. We don't need to tolerate people. We just need to respect other people. We need to respect other people's points of view, but at the same time, we take those points of view and we verify. We investigate. We research. I say we. That's what I do. I'll give you a perfect example. A friend of mine on Facebook, who I think is one of the most awesome people ever. As a matter of fact, this person has turned out to be, I always thought they were a cool person. I got to know them back in 2009, I guess is when I first met them. I thought they were a very sweet, pretty outgoing person, and I thought a lot of them. I've actually come to where I think even more of that person now than I did then. This person has developed into a family person. She loves her kids more than anything. She's taking care of her business as a mom. She has, she has a husband who it's obvious that she respects a lot, and she demands respect from him. And they appear to have a very strong family unit. She's very pro-family. My respect for her is immense. It basically knows no bound. That being said, I don't agree with her on everything. So she posted something on Facebook a couple days ago, and it was a meme. Of course, it was a meme, and it was talking about how it was putting it in funny terms, but the gist of the meme, I don't remember how the meme was exactly. You know, the memes use the sarcasm and the biting wit and the satire and, all it rolled up into one. And so I'm just going to tell you what the gist of the meme was. The gist of the meme was because of gay people, the world, the human species was going to go extinct. That's just ignorance. And I've said on this show many times, if you get offended by the word ignorant, you need to go, first of all, go look up the word ignorant. And you need to understand that I'm never insulting somebody with the word ignorant. I'm ignorant about a ton of things. There's a billion things that I'm ignorant about. Rebuild a transmission. I'm completely ignorant on how to rebuild a transmission. I don't know nothing about it. Does that mean I'm a stupid person? No, I'm not stupid. It just means I don't know anything yet. I could, if I wanted to, learn how to rebuild a transmission. I just haven't yet. So ignorance is definitely not an insult. It's not a slight. But she's just ignorant on this whole phenomenon of homosexuality. Homosexuality has been around since the beginning of time. It spreads across all species, not limited to humans. As a matter of fact, there's some animal species that it's very high in, like in the 20% range. So that's 1 out of every 5. That's pretty high. But on average, I believe it's in the 10% range across all species. Doesn't matter what species you're looking at. Goats, dogs, cows, I don't know, velociraptors, humans. Across all species, there is a segment that is always going to be born homosexual. That's just the way it is. That's just how life works. So you can't say, and this is what gets me, you can't say on the one hand, this is what gets me about the right-wing argument, Christian argument. You can't on one hand say that God don't make no mistakes and that every baby born is born perfect and precious. That's why you're so strong on defending anti-abortion and making sure every baby is born. You can't on the one hand say that and then on the other hand say there's something wrong with a kid that was born as a homosexual. You just can't do that. You can't have it both ways. You don't get to play it both ways. Either every child is a blessed gift born in perfection, or some of them ain't perfect and they're born with something wrong with them. And we need to pray the demons out of them. I've looked at the research that's out there on this, and by the way, every year the research gets stronger and stronger and stronger that this is something that you're born. I mean, I would say it's overwhelming now, but you want to wait 5 years and see how overwhelming the information is by then. I'm sure to be 10 times as overwhelming as it is now. I think there can be no doubt that people are born gay. They're just born gay. They didn't ask to be gay. They weren't 9 years old going around going, man, I bet it'd be real cool to be prejudiced against my whole life and told I was going to die to go to hell. I'm going to pretend to be gay. No, ain't nobody doing that. Nobody's done that. They just are what they are. They're just like you are what you are. Just let them be. They're not hurting you. They're not harming you. They're not bringing this. This should have never have turned into a gay thing. People ask me sometimes. Well, I won't say people ask me sometimes. One person asks me pretty regular. Why do you bother getting into that gay thing at all? You're not gay and it ain't nothing to you and it just makes people hate you. It is something to me because first of all, there's gay people that I love and respect dearly. They're some of my favorite people on the planet. Family members, friends that I've known for 30 years, the list goes on. I think they're fantastic people. I don't think they deserve to be treated like they needed to be drowned in water and have demons cast out of them. They're just human beings that were born a certain way. They can't help it. You think they're going to hell? Fine. So what? You think they're going to hell? As long as trust me, they've been made aware of that. They don't need another person yelling that at them. They ain't one single gay person on this planet that is not aware of the fact that the Bible, according to Christians, thinks they're going to hell. That's been made established now, so you don't got to beat them over the head with it no more. They're armed with all the information they need. The only thing left for you to do, if you're really concerned about them, is to pray for them. Put them on your prayer list. Put them on your fasting list. How many days have you fasted for a gay person? If you really believe a gay person, let's pick one. Do you know one? Do you know a gay person? How many days in fasting and prayer have you done for this gay person to not attacking them, not telling them how wrong they are, not telling them how they're going to go to hell, not telling them how they're going to be the ruination of the fabric of America, not how they're going to bring this great nation down to its knees and all this other crap you spew out of your mouth every day. How many times have you put them on your prayer list and decided to spend every night from 9 till midnight in your prayer closet in the dark on your knees praying for them while you fasted? How many 3-day fasts have you gone on for them? How much do you really care about them? How much do you really believe they're going to hell? How much do you really believe that they need divine intervention? How much do you really believe that they need some proxy to stand in the gap for them to keep them from dying and burning eternally in hell? How many times have you done that? How many times have you fasted and prayed for them? I'm betting zero. My guess would be zero. On the other hand, how many times have you posted on Facebook about how we're a godless nation now going to be brought down to its knees because 2 adult people choose to do something in the privacy of their own home? And so you ask me why I'm passionate about it. Because first of all, and I love fundamentalist Christians. I grew up in it. I think y'all mean well. But your rhetoric is insane. And you use the Bible, your beliefs to take away other people's rights. And then you have the gall to post about how you're the one being persecuted. Kim Davis, a government official, a government that our Constitution has prescribed since the dawn of this very nation, would not be entangled in religion. Religion would be separated from the government because our founders came from that and knew that it sucked to high heavens. They had a government endorsing laws based on religion. They had a government that had its rules and had the way that it acted and the laws that it passed and the expectations of its citizens based on its religion. They came from that and they knew that it sucked to high heavens. They knew that religion was something personal between a person and their God. They knew that religion was something that you hold personal and dear to you. It's not something that's forced from the mandate at the gun of the government. It's not something that's enforced from mandate of legislation and laws. It's something of a personal nature between you and your God. And you do it personally, in your personal life, on your personal time. So Kim Davis, who, God bless her, everything she believes, I think she's entitled to believe the wackiest crap she wants to believe. The Constitution protects her right to believe the most insane things that she wants to believe. But what she can't do is use the power of her government office to deny people their rights. She can't do that. And if she wants to do that, she needs to move to another country. Now, let me tell you what countries do that now. Let's discuss what countries force people to obey by laws that come from their holy book. That'd be Muslim countries. That'd be your Irans, your Saudi Arabias, your Iraqs, your Syrias, where they behead people, cut their hands off, burn them in the streets, crucify them hanging upside down, and crap like that. So if you enjoy watching the government force its will on people under the guise of the holy book, the Muslim countries are the countries for you. Our founding fathers were smarter than that. Our founding fathers were smarter than you. Our founding fathers were smarter than me. I would have never came up with this system. I'd have been too damned ignorant to come up with the system. I'm just going to be honest with you. I would have been too stupid to come up with the system that our founding fathers came up with. Thank God Almighty in heaven above that our founding fathers had the good sense that the Lord gave them to come up with a system that said, you know what? The only way to protect freedom of religion is to remove religion from the government. If we remove religion from the government can never encroach on people. People will be free to worship any God they choose. They'll be free to attend church anywhere they want to attend church. They'll be free to pray any way they want to pray. They'll be able to donate tithes to any church, any religious organization they feel fit to do. They will have ultimate religious freedom because the only people capable of taking away religious freedom is who? The government and government agents. Who's the government? It starts with the president and the executive branch, and it works all the way down through the judicial branch, the legislative branch, to your state legislative and senatorial positions, all the way down to your local representatives, all the way down to your local governments, to your local sheriff's departments, to your local police departments. All those people are armed. They're armed agents of the government. So when your police departments start putting stickers that talks about a specific religion on their car, instead of asking, do I agree with that scripture, what you ought to be asking about, is this a step towards religious tyranny at the hand of an armed government agent? That's the question you ought to be asking. It's fine that you agree with the religious scripture that's on the car. Fantastic. You agree with it. There's other people in that jurisdiction probably don't agree with it. There's other people that probably wouldn't like the future where people could be able to come around and shoot you because you don't agree with the religious sticker that's on their car. And when it's, by God, it's a Muslim sheriff putting Muslim verses from the Quran on their cars, and you can't do nothing about it, and you're going to sit back and bitch and wail about it and post on Facebook about how the end of the country is at hand, how we become an unholy nation that's going straight to hell on a fast train, then you look back and go, holy crap, we opened the door to all of this way back when we said it was okay to put scriptures on cars. You seem like you're a little animated on your little program tonight. I'm a little animated. I'm animated because this precious freedom that we were granted in this country, and God, it's a glorious thing. It's unmatched, or it was unmatched anywhere in the world. It's not unmatched anymore. Believe it or not, there are actually countries now more free than the United States of America. Do you realize what an atrocity that is? Do you realize what an absolute atrocity is that we now live in a country that probably doesn't even rank in the top 10 in terms of freedom? We were the country that invented freedom. We were the country that set up a nation and a rule of laws that granted the maximum amount of freedom to its citizens. It actually put control of the country in the hands of the citizens. It was unheard of. It was unparalleled. It had never been done before in the history of this great round planet orbiting the sun. Now we don't even rank in the top 10. I know the list is debatable. Let's just say we don't rank in the top 5. Hell, I'm willing to say, granted, let's just say we don't even rate in the top 3. I'll grant you that all the surveys are way off, and we're really 4th. We're the country that invented freedom. Guess who's giving it away? I'll tell you who's giving it away. People who will openly defend and fight for a government official, forcing their religious beliefs using the power of the government on innocent citizens. If you've stood up and fought for a person who used their government power to wreak havoc and tyranny on an innocent government citizen, you're the problem. You're the reason the country's going to hell. It's you. You're the reason. You're the problem. I love you. I may be related to you. You may be a member of my family. I love you dearly. I love you dearly, and I wish nothing but the best for you. But you're the problem. You're the problem. You don't understand how we got our freedom. It didn't magically happen. It wasn't because somebody prayed about it. It was because this great magical set of occurrences happened at a moment in history where we were fortunate enough to have men who were so fed up with being taxed and not having any representation, being taxed and not having any say-so, and wanting to have their religion be their own personal decision and not being anything to do with the government, that those people were brave enough to stand up and cross the half of a world and start from scratch a country that gave the power and the freedom to the people, and it put the chains and the binders on the government. It had never been done before. Never in the history of the world had the chains and the restrictions and the things that would clamp you down and constrain you and keep you in a tight little box. Had never in the history of the world had that been done to the government, and the maximum amount of freedom and the maximum amount of liberty and the maximum amount of power had been given to the people. It had never been done before. And they did it in certain ways. They spelled out exactly what the government could and couldn't do. And they said, if it's not listed in this document right here, if a government tries to do something that we haven't specifically listed in this document, it's BS. You take them out. You put them out on their rear. So I've talked so much my throat is hurting, but I'll tell you this. Nobody called the show. Very disappointed about that. Maybe we'll get calls on the next show. I realize I need to be on a better schedule. I know it helps when you're on a schedule. I understand that the podcast started out talking about lies on the internet, and we kind of transversed into freedom and how the people are throwing freedom away. But I think it all ties together. I think unless you inform yourself and you actually understand how the freedom works, you got to understand how the freedom works. You got to understand what protects to the freedom. You got to understand things. You got to understand it. And then you can pick a side and fight for it. Nevertheless, thanks for listening to the podcast. You can subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, TuneIn. We're on all those platforms. Brett Mason Show is what you look for. If you'd like to download our app, you can download the app. It's free on your Android or iOS devices. Just search for Brett Mason Show. Our website is brett-mason.com. And our phone number, again, in case you'd like to save it for the next show, we try to go live Monday through Thursday nights at around 8 p.m. Central. 334-403-4500. 334-403-4500. It's been real, and it's been fun. Thanks for hanging out. I appreciate it. Share it with a friend.
Knowledge is sexy. This is the Brett Mason Show. You can subscribe to the podcast, download the free smartphone app, and find more ways to connect to the show at brett-mason.com/connect.